count down nicely. He always goes 5, 3, 1.
Bottom line is, he was rich and he was young. And he was a ruler, he was an influential person in the society.
Welcome to Energ-Aid, a program for young people just like you and I.
As growing up as a refugee and being able to go to school and being a doctor, you know, it was...
Wow.
Yes, because how do you learn more about him if you don't doubt?
You don't doubt. Wow.
By the way, you can't even trust God if you don't doubt. Do you know that?
Welcome to Energ-Aid, a program for young people just like you and I. My name is Adela Chigoto, and in studio today I have Uncle TK, and we'll be talking about reputation. Welcome.
Thank you very much for having me.
Often when we talk about reputation, we often put it in a negative light. So, for example, people say, I'm trying to keep my reputation. And in that they're basically saying, I want to appear in a certain way, even though I'm not that kind of person, you know? And unfortunately, that's what we see reputation as. But reputation is much bigger than that, and that's what we want to discuss today. Now, let's go to the Bible. What does the Bible actually say about reputation?
Okay. It's interesting that we're having this discussion around reputation, and that it's interesting as well that the Bible has mentioned
Reputation.
a bit about reputation. So I want just to take you through Proverbs 22 verse 1.
Okay.
Proverbs 22 verse 1 says, a good name is more desirable than riches. It actually says a good name is more desirable than great riches.
Sure.
To be esteemed is better than silver or gold.
Wow.
The same is echoed in Ecclesiastes 7 verse 1, which says a good name is something that's good, it's something that's desirable, and it's worth more than the most expensive perfumes.
Wow.
So the Bible clearly is depicting the fact that a good name, keeping a good name, is something that's desirable. Keeping a good name, I mean, and it's something that's worth more than riches. So you can already tell that the Bible is clear around its position towards us making a good name. So even when some people would say, oh, I want to keep a good name, yes, it is actually biblical.
Yeah, to do that.
To do that. It's biblical for us to desire to have a good name, because when you have a good name, that's actually, the Bible is saying, it's actually way better than having so many great riches. Right.
And you're a banker.
Yes.
But you also do a lot of, you MC a lot of events.
Yes.
Whether at corporate level, you know, within the church.
Yes.
You go to so many different events, and you're young as well.
Oh, I'm
you're young.
Okay.
You know, and personally for me, when I see you,
Yes.
you know, when someone mentions Uncle TK, I'm thinking, wow, that's such a good man. You know, you kind of have found a way to balance, I wouldn't say balance the world, and, you know, but you found a way to put yourself out there, but still in a good light. And, you know, often when people now start going into the secular world, they lose that within themselves. They can't, they're not able to portray Christ. But that's what reputation is about. It's about portraying Christ wherever we are. And I feel personally that, I don't know if you know that, but, you know, that's something that you do.
Well, I would take that as a compliment, but
Yeah.
I also take that, to be honest, as a challenge as an individual. Because talking about reputation, one is built over time, right? Reputation is built over various kind of circumstances. People build, you build a reputation based on various activities, and as you know, over time that you build as a responsibility. But when you say talking about being a Christian and maintaining a very good name and having a very good relationship, and why I was saying I'm taking it as a challenge, is because as Christians, our number one priority is that we're supposed to represent Christ and represent Him very well. Acts 1 verse 8 says, we are your witnesses. And so we are to represent Christ and to represent Him well to the lost and dying world.
And those are quite different things, actually.
Yes. So when you're living your life as a Christian, we are being compelled, we're being asked that we are going to represent Christ. And because we are representing Christ, that's why I was saying it's a big challenge for ourselves, because, well, Jesus was honest, Jesus was kind, Jesus was loyal, Jesus was honorable. And we are being called to be all that, right? So you've talked about my profession and me being a banker and being a corporate event, and being a host of various events. It means the way I work, the way I portray myself in events, the way I run my events, the way I train, each and every of aspects within my reputations, they should represent Christ, right? And that's our big mandate and the big challenge for us, because then when people evaluate us, or people, much as, being honest, much as we all run away from the idea of being judged, of judgment, of judging each other, but people are basically judging you. People are basically judging me by the moment that they see me talk, by the moment that there's always some level of judgment and people making opinions of who you are.
That's true.
So the call that we are being called onto, and even through the word of God, is that when people are making judgments of you, when people are going to make comments of who you are, when you are going to say, I want to maintain this kind of persona or this kind of personality, and I want to hold this kind of reputation in the society, the call for us as Christians now is that in us holding that persona, in us holding that name, the Bible is saying you should make sure that whatever you're doing, build a good name. But also the name that you're going to build should be a name that should represent Christ to the lost and to the dying world. Yeah. So that's how I would think it's actually a big challenge.
It is.
It is a big challenge. It means it calls on us to pause and to ask ourselves, how do I live my life? And how is my life representing Christ?
Yeah. And I feel like sometimes it's almost easier to just throw on that image, especially at church. I feel like in our churches especially, there's a lot of pretense that goes on. You're one thing on Saturday or Sunday, and the next day you're someone completely different. So I think reputation also goes hand in hand with integrity. That it's not just about having a good name on the outside, but even on the inside for yourself.
So I like what you say, that I think when it comes to integrity, that reputation is actually even integrity. And there's been a definition around integrity that says doing the very best that you can do as if no one is watching you.
Yeah, that's true.
Or like you're doing as if there's no audience, there's no one, and what you do when no one is not watching you, that's what integrity is the showcasing of integrity. And as Christians, our core in terms of representing Christ, and it's just not about it's representing Christ even when people are actually not saying one. And for us to say you have got integrity, it should then say it should showcase that what you profess with your mouth is also in tandem or is aligned with what you actually do.
Yeah.
Right? So as you say, many of our churches, sometimes you go to church on a Sabbath or on a Sunday, and people look very holy and they're praising their hands and they're singing nicely, and they greet each other to say, how are you, brother? And they respond with a verse, the Lord constrains me, the power of Lord. The next day they do something different. We should know that the world is still looking, and they sort of like look at you and being surprised and say, how does this person who looks holier on this day and looks different the next day? So our core as Christians then, it should be that the way we are living our lives, the way our reputation is being judged by the world, is also in tandem with what is being said on our mouths, or things that you profess to say, that these are things that you profess, and things that you actually do, they look the same. Because if our core as Christians, we're going to go to the ends of the world to tell people about Christ, and what we do does not look like Christ, or what we do does not look like what Christ would want us to do, our message is going to be tainted. Our message is not going to be believable. They will look at us and say, no, we hear you, but that's not what you do.
Exactly.
Yeah, but then reputation should go beyond just saying I want to build a reputation. I want to build a certain image that my friends or people who see me as. But you should then say, from the things that I profess with my mouth, or the values that I say I'm going to live by, I'm also going to make sure that they're just not only coming through your mouth, but also they're coming through your deed. And now that's integrity. Yeah.
And it's a bit unfortunate that even now the world already has sort of a distorted image of Christians, because I think as Christians we've lost our purpose. We've lost our core of what we're actually here to do, what we're actually here for. And so when people look at Christians, you know, it can be difficult just for you to say I'm a Christian, because someone who you're talking to may have had a bad experience with your fellow Christian because they've you know, done things differently, treated them differently, and I think that's a huge challenge that we have in our world today.
I think that's a big challenge, but our honorable lives, right? Our honorable lives should be honorable enough to silence those that are ignorant.
Wow, okay.
Right? Because if we are living an honorable life and other people are making accusations over the reputations of Christian lives, if you're going to live an honorable life, if you're going to live a life that's worth of your calling, the Bible says living a life beyond reproach, you then can actually get to a point where people are asking, they wish they could find a fault within you, but they can't find it. So in cases where God's name is being put in disrepute, or it's, you know, someone is looking at Christians and saying, well, Christians are
This and they just
there's something shady about Christians. But someone would one time, if you're going to live honorably, going again to integrity, if you're going to live honorably, someone would be able to then say, you know, the Christians of your church or Christians, they are very shady, but you are different.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But you speak differently, but you dress differently. I'm sure there have been moments where some people have asked you, you know, like I'm an Adventist.
Yeah.
Some people have asked me, you know, where I've been saying that, yes, I'm an Adventist, but I'm a different Adventist.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
I'll give you one example. One obvious example is some people would ask me about the choice of diet. You know, they would ask me and say, well, we know you're an Adventist, but what kind of Adventism is this? You know, just because of my choice of diet. So in other words, if we live honorably, right, and we should be able to silence those people that are giving, that are doubting, the reputation of Christians. I just want to say also that we should be aware that as some reputations come from false accusations.
Yeah.
They can come from malice. They can come from gossip. They can come from, you know, slander, and they can create a story around you. And unfortunately, the world, because the world is judging us in a different way, is looking at us. The world is looking at people in a different way. They can look at you and start believing, right? Again, even in those times where you know you're actually being falsely accused, and your reputation is being tainted by what other people are saying about you, which may not even be right. You are going to live right. Right? You are going to do what is right. You're going to do what you have been called to do as a child of God and as a Christian, and by doing so, you're silencing
others.
You are silencing others that are doubting you.
And do you think that not necessarily talking about reputation, but when it comes to now people judging us, especially as Christians, do you think that sometimes we bring it upon ourselves? You know, we have a lot of young people saying only God can judge me. Who are you to judge me? But you know, sometimes even you look at someone and you think, but you're not necessarily doing the right thing anyway. You know, so what would you say about that? Do you think that sometimes we bring it upon ourselves?
As I said earlier, whether we like it or not, in this world, someone is going to judge you, right? But there's also a difference between judging and correction.
Okay.
Right? There's a big difference between judging and correction, because where you need to correct, it's not judging. So you're pointing out the fact and say, this is the way that I would love, that I would propose that you should leave. And in that, it doesn't mean that I'm judging you. It does not mean that I am saying you're condemned.
Yeah.
Right? But what it means, I'm just providing the direction and I'm providing correction is different from the way, where judging is. People feel judged and they can respond to that point and say, well, only God can judge me.
Yeah.
Is because sometimes even the tone of correction or even the process of correction, you then might have a situation where someone might feel like they are being judged while they're just being corrected. And then they would say, no, but I can, who are you to judge me like that?
Yeah.
And you're also a sinner just like myself. Well, it's only God that can judge me.
Yeah,
Who's a righteous
that
God.
whole defense
That
thing.
whole defense thing. So, but because also the approach, the tone, but we must understand the fact that correcting is actually okay.
Yeah.
Right? It's actually very biblical that we should, when we see a child that's longing, we should seek in, going afar and telling them to come back to the fold of God. And that's our responsibility as Christians. That we shouldn't rejoice when someone has a bad reputation.
Yeah.
We shouldn't rejoice when someone has done bad. Actually right now, because of the social media frenzy, where we get so excited when we see one story running, even one story that is talking about even a church member.
Yeah.
It's talking about a Christian, a fellow child of God. We get very excited when you hear a story. You haven't even verified what that story is true or not. There you go, forward.
To
Copy,
everyone, every
paste,
group.
Every group. And when people are asking you, well, I copied from somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, copied from somewhere, but you're the one who has put in this group. You hold the responsibility to explain to us how far true this story is, right? And most of the stories, sometimes they are false accusations, gossip, and so on and so forth. As children of God, we shouldn't be the ones that should be excited to go on to slander other children of God.
We shouldn't be at the forefront of
We shouldn't be at the forefront, leading to sort of like advertise someone else's reputation.
Yeah.
Because in doing so, you actually bring the name of the Lord in disrepute. Because if anything, if you cared so much about that person, haven't you just pick a call and ask him? Or go and pray for him. But what compels you to then say, I want the whole world to know how bad this person is, as opposed to you making sure that your child, the person changes, or not only has changed, but the person has gone back to be corrected. As I said, many other times that you haven't even confirmed whether the story is true or not, but you go on to slander someone else. It's not even right for us as Christians.
And I like that you've brought up the correcting our reputation, and that's what we want to talk about next. But before we do that, let's listen to an item of music. Welcome back. Before the song, we were talking about reputation. Now, just before the song, you talked about correcting reputation, you know, that this thing of, now we want to talk about how someone may have already built a bad reputation for themselves. And you spoke about change as well. How can we change the bad name that we have built for ourselves? I feel like it can be a very difficult thing when someone has known you to be a certain type of way, and now when you want to change, you have all these forces against you from you making progress. So what would you say to that person who has built a bad reputation for themselves and actually genuinely wants to change, to put on this armor of Christ, to start representing Christ in a better light?
You see, it's interesting, and not only interesting, but it's such a blessing that we have Christ.
Yeah.
And Christ somehow like foreknew that these situations would occur.
Yeah.
And even himself, remember, you know, Christ, Philippians chapter 2 verse 7 says, Jesus made himself of no reputation and took upon himself a form of a servant.
Yeah.
He left his right of being praised.
God.
He left his right of being God. He left his right of being worshipped and walked in right into a world. And the Son of God knew he comes into the world where he got to be mocked. He was not as adored as much as he was
In heaven.
in heaven. And yet he lived a life that was worth his calling, right? And where in cases where we have had our images tarnished, why not us trying to emulate the life of Christ? That he still came to the earth, despite him being God. He got to be mocked. He had a bad reputation. Christ had like a bad reputation.
Yeah.
People said, this person is actually eating with sinners. That was a bad reputation.
Yeah.
You know, this person was healing on Sabbath. Bad reputation.
Talking to prostitutes.
He's talking to prostitutes. He had a bad reputation. But that did not deter him to do what was right.
Yeah.
That did not deter him to do what was honorable. That did not deter him to do what was good. Right? So for us, let's simulate the life of Christ.
Yeah.
As I said, your life and my life, we are created for God. That God, we should represent him while on earth to the lost and seeking the lost, to people who are in anguish, who are in pain, that we are the core representatives of Christ. And regardless of the reputation that we've had, it's possible that we have had a bad reputation. It's possible that people look at us in a different way, they have judged us in a different way. But I think the core that you and I is to say, how do we make ourselves a good name and to represent Christ and to do that what is right and do that which is honorable before the Lord? Yeah.
Wow. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you. Anytime.
That was Uncle TK on reputation. I really hope that you have been blessed and inspired, and also that you have seen reputation from a different perspective. You're with me, your host, Adela Chakota, right here on Hope Channel Malawi with your program Energ-Aid. Remember, you can do all things through Christ who strengthens you.